Next item on the agenda is Mr. Cameron. Thank you very much for coming, sir.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Sorry you had to wait.
So, you would like me to begin with a statement?
Yeah, whatever you'd like to say. We invited for the public and for 9 members of the task force. We invited all of the members of the current POC to come and speak to the task force should they so desire. And Mr. Cameron, as the chair of the POC, is here to speak to us.
Thank you for the invitation. I do respect each of you for taking on this task. It's not an easy one. I know to some degree. As I was thinking about what I would like to say to you, it occurred to me that to start with our common assumption, and that is that we're all after a well-functioning police force in the city. One that is well-paid, well-trained, one that does its work well and enjoys high community respect for high standards. And so the Police Oversight Commission really functions to address that last part that deals with community respect. How do we help create a system that generates a positive, respectful feeling for our police so that they can do their job? Because police officers who do not enjoy community respect have a heck of a time. And it gets mired down in a lot of things that we have seen. As I was thinking about this process, one thing I've learned over the almost 2 years I've been on the Police Oversight Commission is that it is a very fragile process. There are 4 actors at least. There's the police force, the rank and file, and who are represented by their union. There is the police administration and connected with the city administration. There is community, the citizens that they serve, and then there is the Police Oversight Commission and the independent review officer and her staff. And there has to be a balance kept. The whole process relies heavily upon cooperation. If any one of those groups tries to coerce any of the others, it quickly breaks down because there are limits to the ordinance that we work under. In any ordinance that you can come up with, there are going to be limits. And if any one of those players tries to coerce anyone else, then the ones being coerced will simply say, I will do what I have to do and no more. And I think we've seen some of that as different players in this process have tried to assert authority that was not theirs to assert, or had tried to create a situation that was manipulative. And each one of those players has, we all have the goal, I hope, of creating a solid task force that serves the public well. But each of those players also has their own personal objectives, their own biases. And we've got to create a system that invites each of the players to keep their biases in check. And so it cannot be an antagonistic system. That's what I'm learning. Anytime there's antagonism, people back off and become what we call maliciously obedient. I'm going to do only what I have to do, and I'm not going to help you one step further. came on fairly naively to this process, thinking I have some counseling experience, I could help, kind of listen carefully. I've seen recommendations that have been offered to you about the certain makeup of a commission, paying commissioners, POC having oversight of the independent review officer, so that officer is no longer independent. And I understand the motivation. I feel the frustration that tries to address. But I really think those recommendations would lead to an antagonistic relationship. That the police force, union, they're going to say, we'll do only what we have to do. And the more you try to make them do stuff, the more they will dig their heels in. But when you have a very competent independent review officer, as I think we do, who has a good working relationship with the police administration, the police administration will cooperate, and they can get a lot done. The union, because of some things that went on in some of our meetings, and they felt coerced, manipulated. They've said, we're going to do only what we have to do. And so they sent the letter saying, no, contract says you can only reveal this amount in the citizen police complaints, and that's it. And what you've been doing, you've got to back off from. Had they not felt coerced, manipulated, they wouldn't have done that, I don't think. I think they would have gone along with us. So I don't know how clear I'm being here, and I don't have any specific recommendations other than to keep in mind that it's a delicate balance, and no one of the four groups can get everything they want to maintain that balance. And then there's also the fact of our budget. There's only a limited amount of money that can be spent. And if you're spending money to pay $10,000 to commissioners a year, that's money that could be going to hire another investigator for the independent review officers staff, which we desperately need. So, it's in an ideal world, certain things might work, but we're not in that world. That's my comment.
Well, thank you very much. Now we'll accept questions.
Yes.
Mr. Bray and then Mr. Simons.
And I have several questions. Mr. Cameron, thank you for coming in. We really do appreciate it. The information that I know that you provided and will provide will be incredibly helpful to this process. And I've listened and I've heard what you said, but what is the problem? What is the problem? There's a perception. The reason why we're here is because there's a perception out there that something is wrong. And you talked a little bit about public trust, but what is the problem and how do you turn that around? How, as the chair of the Police Oversight Commission, what can you do differently in order to instill the public trust and at least address that issue that you brought up?
Well, I think for us to gain the public trust, we act as transparently as possible, and we say what we're going to do, and we do what we say we're going to do. I think part of as you have experienced, there's a handful of people who have, for various motivations, I'm sure, come to a lot of the different meetings and make angry statements, frustrated statements, accusatory statements. My experience, when in 2010, for whatever reason, the police department had a spike in police shootings. And so the public began to cry for the Police Oversight Commission to do something about that. It wasn't in our power to do something about that, as under our ordinance as it exists. And I'm not smart enough to tell you how to write an ordinance that could do something about that. I think what was done was the Department of Justice is coming in, they're doing an investigation. And hopefully that will lead to a good outcome. I do know that, you know, once you get that ball rolling about the police are no good and I'll throw the bums out, the media picks up on that and that chorus starts going. And so, you know, after 2010, police shootings went down significantly for subsequent couple of years.
6 times?
And so,
Let's do it.
Sir, please.
1 month, 6 times.
and let me regain my thought here.
And Mr.
But that was not reported, anyway. No recognition was made of that. Anytime it was reported, so, well, there have been this number of shootings since 2010. So there's, you know, there's no recognition among certain members of the public or the media that changes have been made, that things have changed. So I think, two years ago I was said, you know, let anybody speak who wants to speak for as long as they want to speak. But as you have experienced here, there are people who have various axes to grind, and they do not make a substantive contribution to the conversation. All they do is distract and distort. And you live with that. I mean, that's part of the process. But I think you don't, neither do you pay too undue attention to those comments to the exclusion of others. I don't know if I answered your question or not.
Thank you. Mr. Cameron, you mentioned the word transparency.
Right.
Transparency is an issue. How can the ordinance be rewritten to address the issue of transparency in order to make your job and the job of the Police Oversight Commission more transparent? What sorts of changes do you think would have a positive impact for you, members of the Police Oversight Commission, and for the community? How would you address the transparency issue?
Well, I'm not smart enough to know, the real answer to that. I know that we formed a committee to develop some outreach materials, and if this process goes through and we get a new ordinance and things, the way is clear, then the plan would be to be more proactive in meeting with community groups to explain what the POC does, what the independent review officer does, how people can file complaints. That's something that's been lacking in the past few years anyway. Other than that, I think we are under the Public Meetings Act. I think we do a good job being transparent, frankly. And those who complain, I don't understand the complaints.
You alluded to
Mr. Bryant.
Maybe one more question? Yeah,
Okay, because you're kind of manipulating the.
Okay, how much time do we have? Okay, this is time limited as far as?
No,
information?
I just wanted to give some other people a chance to speak. So ask your follow-up.
Okay, and I'm just asking follow-up for very specific information that he's providing, and that'll help me
Okay.
assess what needs to be done, and what sort of decisions we need to
Go ahead.
look at. You talked about maybe it's a lack of cohesion. You discussed the four key players, and maybe this lack of cohesion, and maybe some antagonism or some sort of conflict. How do you avoid that within the Police Oversight Commission? Is this something that is unique to the Police Oversight Commission, or is this a human thing that you're discussing? And although it's probably distracting, by way of an ordinance, by way of our job and our function here, how would you recommend that we address that issue in order to allow you to do your job?
Again, I think there, I mean, for it to function effectively, there's got to be a basic framework, but then beyond that, it's just the assumption of goodwill on each party's part. And, you know, and I think, you know, every player has to understand, like the police union has to understand that it really is a benefit to the rank and file members to have a professionally trained, well-functioning group that abides by the standard operating procedures. And so the Police Oversight Commission, when we are looking over citizen complaints about members of their union, we're not out to get them. We're trying to sort out what happened here, what's the best practice here. If an ordinance needs to be changed, how can it be changed for the better? Not an ordinance, standard operating procedure. And so when the union pulls back and says, you know, we don't trust this process, maybe they've got a reason, or maybe they need to rethink their role in the process. You know, we had a meeting where a member of the public was allowed to speak at an inappropriate time, to question people in an inappropriate way, and that one incident undermined the delicate balance of trust that had been built, and we're paying for it now. But as far as how to create an ordinance that would prevent that, I don't know. I mean, the city negotiates with the union to create a contract, and that contract impinges on the amount of investigation, or the length of investigation, or the window for investigation that can go on. And sometimes we chafe because we feel like we need more investigation, but we passed the 90-day window, so we can't get it. So, you know, I'm not smart enough to know how to hammer all those things out, nor do I really want to. I hope I've been responsive to your questions.
And one final question. The qualifications of the task force members have come up over and over and over again. So it's an issue that
You guys?
I'm sorry, of the Police Oversight Commission, during the task force,
Right.
so the task force subcommittees, the qualifications of the Police Oversight Commissioners have come up multiple times. What are your views? Do those qualifications need to be addressed? Do they need to be tweaked? Do they need to be improved? What are your thoughts as chairman of the current Police Oversight Commission and its qualifications?
Well, in a perfect world, it would be a rainbow of races and socioeconomic status and geographical residence. Right now, we've got one Hispanic woman, and as far as I can tell, the rest of us are white guys. And as far as, what kind of background, I don't know. I mean, I think as rich a diversity as you can get of experience and wisdom. But as far as, setting a standard, well, we ought to have 3 ex-law enforcement, or 1 ex-prosecutor, or 2 ministers, I don't know, that would, I think you're going to write yourself into a box if you do that.
Mr. Simonson, did you have your hand raised?
Yeah, thank you for coming to talk to us. I actually had an original question, but I wanted to just ask a clarification on one of your comments. You've been talking about some incident that took place where someone who commented during the public comment section.
No, it wasn't during the public comment section.
Okay. Can you just, because I'm just not, I guess I'm ignorant of what the situation was and the problem that was created. During our discussion of one of the citizen police complaints, I believe,
I was not there, so I only saw it. It was a police shooting, that's what it was. One of the police shooting discussions. A member of the public was invited to basically testify. And there was no, this person said he knew something that would be helpful, but there was no assurance of any kind that that was actually the case. And so it was just an inappropriate testimony at the wrong time. That should not have been allowed.
Thank you for that. My main question was, do you think that the civilian oversight process needs to be reformed?
I think what we could do better is to have more of an emphasis on collection of data, the long-range kind of addressing of macro issues. I think we handle the citizen police complaint part of it quite well. And I think that's a very critical part, that citizens feel they have an independent, non-biased place they can go to make a complaint. And I mean, it's true that the independent review officer and her staff, 99% of the letters that they write, we concur with, because they do a good job. But I think we get to hear what kind of complaints are coming in, and so I think what we could do better and do more of would be to work with, analyzing the data of those complaints and saying, this needs to be improved, this needs to be changed. Suggesting that, again, remembering we're not the professional law enforcement people. We're citizens who are recognizing, there's something going on here, and it's to the best interest of all of us that we look at it. And we could find that out if we had more data analysis and more time to sit and talk about making the police force better, rather than dealing with specific incidents.
Great, thank you.
Other questions from Mr. Cameron, Chairman Cameron? Okay, thank you very much. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you for giving me an opportunity.